Luna's hands trembled as she folded her few belongings into a worn leather satchel. The morning sun cast long shadows across her small room in the Crescent Moon Pack house, but the light felt cold against her skin. Today was the day her life would change forever, whether she wanted it or not. The trade agreement had been signed 3 days ago. Her father, Alpha Marcus of the Crescent Moon Pack, had made the decision without consulting her. She was to be given to the Shadowfang Pack as part of a peace treaty, a living symbol of unity between two packs that had been enemies for generations. The irony wasn't lost on her that she, who had always dreamed of choosing her own mate, was now being handed over like cattle. A sharp knock on her door made her jump. "Luna, it's time," came her father's gruff voice through the wooden barrier. She took a deep breath and opened the door to find Alpha Marcus standing there, his weathered face showing no emotion. Behind him stood 3 pack elders, their expressions equally stoic. Her father's beta, Thomas, shifted uncomfortably near the stairs, unable to meet her eyes. "The Shadowfang delegation is here," Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority that had kept their pack strong for 20 years. "You know what's expected of you." Luna nodded, though every fiber of her being screamed in protest. She had always been obedient, always put the pack's needs before her own. But this felt different. This felt like betrayal. They walked down the wooden stairs together, their footsteps echoing through the pack house that had been her home for 22 years. Pack members lined the hallways, some offering encouraging smiles, others looking away in shame. Everyone knew this trade was necessary, but that didn't make it easier to watch. The main hall fell silent as they entered. At the far end, near the great stone fireplace, stood the Shadowfang delegation. Luna's breath caught in her throat as her eyes fell upon their leader. Alpha Kieran Blackwood was nothing like what she had expected. The stories told of a ruthless leader, a man who ruled through fear and intimidation, but the figure before her commanded respect through pure presence alone. He stood well over 6 feet tall, his dark hair slightly tousled as if he had just shifted back from wolf form. His eyes, a striking amber gold, seemed to see straight through to her soul. He wore simple dark clothing, but there was nothing simple about the way he carried himself. Power radiated from him in waves, making her wolf stir restlessly beneath her skin. This was an alpha in every sense of the word, and despite her circumstances, she found herself drawn to that strength. "Alpha Marcus," Kieran said, his voice deep and smooth. "I trust everything is in order?" Her father stepped forward, and Luna noticed how he seemed smaller in Kieran's presence. "Everything as agreed. My daughter Luna, as promised." Kieran's gaze shifted to her, and she felt heat rise in her cheeks under his intense scrutiny. He studied her for what felt like an eternity, taking in her long auburn hair, her defiant green eyes, and the way she held herself despite her circumstances. "She's beautiful," he said finally, but there was something in his tone that suggested he saw more than just her appearance. "Strong, too. I can sense her wolf." Luna lifted her chin, meeting his gaze directly. She wouldn't cower no matter what happened next. "I can speak for myself, Alpha." A murmur ran through both delegations at her boldness. Addressing an alpha so directly was considered disrespectful, especially during formal proceedings. But instead of anger, she saw something like approval flicker in Kieran's eyes. "Indeed you can," he replied, a slight smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "I appreciate honesty, Luna of the Crescent Moon Pack." The formal exchange continued around her, but Luna found herself lost in thought. Everything she had heard about Kieran Blackwood suggested he was a tyrant, someone who ruled through fear and brutality. Yet the man before her seemed different. There was strength there, yes, but also intelligence and something that might have been kindness. Her father handed over the official documents, sealing her fate with ink and paper. The trade was complete. She was no longer a member of the Crescent Moon Pack. She belonged to Shadowfang now, belonged to Kieran. "We leave immediately," Kieran announced, turning back to his delegation. "The territory borders are still dangerous at night." Luna felt panic rise in her chest. She had known this moment would come, but the reality of leaving everything she had ever known hit her like a physical blow. Her mother had died when she was young, but this pack house held every memory she had of growing up, of learning to shift, of becoming the woman she was today. "May I say goodbye?" she asked, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Kieran studied her for a moment before nodding. 5 minutes. She moved through the gathered pack members, accepting hugs and whispered well wishes. Her childhood friend Sarah was crying openly, while old Henrik, who had taught her to hunt, pressed a small silver pendant into her hand. "For protection," he whispered. "Your mother would have wanted you to have it." When she returned to the delegation, Kieran was waiting by the door. Without ceremony, he gestured for her to follow him outside, where several wolves waited in human form beside motorcycles and a large black SUV. "You'll ride with me," Kieran said, moving toward the SUV. It wasn't a question. Luna climbed into the passenger seat, her satchel clutched tightly in her lap. As they pulled away from the only home she had ever known, she fought back tears. She wouldn't give anyone the satisfaction of seeing her break. "Having second thoughts?" Kieran asked quietly as they turned onto the main road. Luna glanced at him, surprised by the gentle tone. "Would it matter if I was?" He was quiet for a long moment, his hand steady on the steering wheel. "More than you might think." The cryptic response only added to her confusion. Nothing about this situation was turning out as she had expected. As the familiar landscape of her territory gave way to unknown roads, Luna couldn't help but wonder what other surprises awaited her in the Shadowfang pack. The journey to her new life had begun, and despite her fears, she found herself curious about the mysterious Alpha sitting beside her. Perhaps there was more to Kieran Blackwood than the rumors suggested. Perhaps there was more to this arrangement than a simple political trade. Only time would tell if she was right to hope, or if she was walking willingly into a trap from which there would be no escape. The drive through unfamiliar territory lasted 3 hours, winding through dense forests and rocky hills that Luna had never seen before. Kieran drove in comfortable silence, occasionally speaking into a hands-free device to coordinate with his pack members who rode ahead and behind them. Despite being essentially a prisoner, Luna found herself feeling oddly safe in his presence. As they crested a hill, the Shadowfang territory spread out before them like something from a dream. Unlike the modest buildings of her former pack, this place looked like a small city built into the natural landscape. Modern structures blended seamlessly with the forest, connected by stone paths and wooden bridges. At the center stood a magnificent lodge that seemed to grow from the mountainside itself. "Welcome to Shadowfang," Kieran said, his voice carrying a note of pride. "This will be your home now." Luna stared in amazement. Everything she had heard about this pack suggested they were primitive, savage even. But the settlement before her spoke of prosperity and careful planning. Solar panels glinted on rooftops, and she could see gardens and training grounds nestled between the buildings. "It's not what I expected," she admitted honestly. Kieran's lips quirked in what might have been a smile. "Most people expect us to live in caves and eat raw meat. We find those misconceptions useful." The SUV pulled up to the main lodge, and immediately pack members began emerging from various buildings. Luna's stomach clenched as she realized they were all staring at her. News of the trade had obviously spread throughout the territory. A woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes approached as they exited the vehicle. She looked to be in her 50s but moved with the fluid grace of someone much younger. Her presence radiated the calm authority of a high-ranking pack member. "Alpha," she said, bowing slightly to Kieran before turning curious eyes to Luna. "This must be our guest." "Luna," Kieran said formally. "Meet Elena, our pack healer and my second mother in all but blood." "Elena, this is Luna, formerly of Crescent Moon." Elena's eyes widened slightly at the introduction. Being called a second mother to an Alpha was an incredible honor, and Luna realized she was meeting someone very important in the pack hierarchy. "Welcome, child," Elena said warmly, stepping forward to take Luna's hands in hers. "I know this must be overwhelming, but we're glad to have you here." The genuine warmth in Elena's voice caught Luna off guard. She had expected suspicion, maybe even hostility from Kieran's pack members. Instead, she was being welcomed like a long-lost relative. "Thank you," Luna managed, still clutching her satchel nervously. "Elena will show you to your quarters," Kieran said, already turning toward the lodge. "Rest today. Tomorrow we'll discuss your place here." He strode away before Luna could respond, leaving her alone with Elena and a growing crowd of curious pack members. She felt exposed, like a specimen under a microscope. "Come along, dear," Elena said gently, leading her toward a smaller building connected to the main lodge by a covered walkway. "The others can gawk later. You need time to settle in." As they walked, Elena pointed out various buildings and features of the territory. The pack numbered nearly 200, making it one of the largest in the region. They had their own school, medical facilities, and even a small manufacturing operation that produced handmade furniture sold to humans in nearby towns. "We're largely self-sufficient," Elena explained as they climbed wooden stairs to the second floor of what appeared to be a guest lodge. "Kieran believes in taking care of our own." She opened a door to reveal a spacious room with large windows overlooking the forest. The furnishings were simple but comfortable, with a 4-poster bed, a writing desk, and a small sitting area. Someone had already placed fresh flowers on the nightstand. "This is beautiful," Luna said, setting her satchel on the bed. "But I have to ask why I'm not being kept under guard. Doesn't Kieran worry I might run?" Elena studied her thoughtfully. "Where would you run to? Your former pack traded you away, and even if you tried to leave, you'd never make it past our sentries. But more importantly, Kieran doesn't believe in keeping people prisoner. If you truly want to leave, he'll let you go." Luna sank into the chair by the window, suddenly exhausted. "I don't understand any of this. Everything I was told about this pack, about Kieran, seems to be wrong." "What were you told?" Elena asked, settling into the other chair. "That you were savages, that Kieran was a tyrant who ruled through fear, that this pack barely survived by raiding others." Luna looked out at the prosperous settlement below. "But this place looks like paradise." Elena's expression darkened. "We let people believe what they want to believe. It keeps enemies at a distance and protects our true strength. But you're here now, so you deserve to know the truth." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a confidential tone. "Kieran took over this pack when he was barely 21, after his father was killed in a challenge from a rival alpha. The pack was in chaos, members were leaving, and we were on the verge of collapse. Everyone expected him to fail." Luna found herself leaning in, captivated by the story. Instead, he transformed everything. He made alliances instead of enemies, focused on building rather than fighting. Under his leadership, we've become one of the most successful packs in the region. But he's learned to let others underestimate him. It gives him an advantage when it matters. "Then why did he agree to the trade?" Luna asked. "What does he gain from taking me?" Elena was quiet for a long moment, as if choosing her words carefully. "That's something you'll need to ask him yourself. But I will say this. Kieran doesn't make decisions lightly, and he doesn't take on responsibilities he can't handle." A soft knock on the door interrupted their conversation. A young woman with bright red hair and freckles peered in, carrying a tray laden with food. "I thought you might be hungry," she said shyly, setting the tray on the small table. "I'm Mira, by the way. I work in the kitchens." The smell of fresh bread and roasted meat made Luna's stomach growl loudly. She realized she hadn't eaten since early morning. "Thank you, Mira. This looks wonderful." As Luna ate, more pack members found reasons to stop by. Some brought small gifts: a book, a hand-knitted scarf, a jar of honey from their apiaries. Others simply introduced themselves and offered help if she needed anything. By evening, Luna's room was filled with tokens of welcome, and her head was spinning with names and faces. The hospitality was overwhelming, especially after expecting hostility. "Why is everyone being so kind?" she asked Elena, who had stayed to help her settle in. "I'm essentially a hostage from a rival pack." "Former rival pack," Elena corrected gently. "The trade agreement makes us allies now. And besides, kindness costs nothing but often pays great dividends." As the sun set behind the mountains, casting the territory in golden light, Luna stood at her window trying to process everything that had happened. This morning she had woken up in her childhood bedroom, resigned to a fate she couldn't control. Tonight she was in a completely different world, surrounded by people who seemed genuinely happy to have her. But questions remained. What did Kieran really want from her? What was her actual role supposed to be here? And why did she find herself thinking about the mysterious Alpha's amber eyes and the way he had seemed to see straight through to her soul? A soft knock brought her attention back to the present. Helena stood in the doorway with a gentle smile. "Kieran has asked if you'd join him for breakfast tomorrow morning. Nothing formal, just a chance to talk and answer questions you might have." Luna nodded, though her stomach fluttered with nerves. "What time?" 8 o'clock in his private dining room. "Just be yourself, Luna. I have a feeling that's exactly what he's hoping to see." As Elena left and Luna prepared for bed in her new home, She couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would bring revelations that would change everything once again. The bold alpha who had claimed her was full of surprises, and she suspected she had only begun to scratch the surface of who Kieran Blackwood really was. Luna woke before dawn, her internal clock still adjusting to the new surroundings. The room was bathed in soft, pre-dawn light filtering through the large windows, and for a moment she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back, along with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation about her breakfast meeting with Kieran. She had barely slept, her mind racing with questions about her purpose here and what the alpha might expect from her. Every sound from the territory below had seemed amplified in the darkness, reminding her that she was surrounded by wolves she didn't know, in a place that was supposed to be her home but still felt foreign. After a quick shower in the surprisingly luxurious bathroom, Luna stood before her meager wardrobe. She had packed for exile, not for impressing an alpha. Finally, she settled on her best jeans and a simple green sweater that brought out her eyes. If Kieran wanted to see the real her, then this would have to do. At exactly 8 o'clock, Elena appeared at her door with a warm smile and fresh coffee. "Ready?" Elena asked, though her keen eyes seemed to assess Luna's emotional state more than her appearance. Kieran doesn't like to be kept waiting, but he's also not one for unnecessary formality. They walked through the covered walkway connecting the guest lodge to the main building. The morning air was crisp and clean, carrying the scent of pine and wood smoke. Pack members were already moving about their daily routines, heading to training sessions or various work assignments. Several nodded respectfully to Elena and offered Luna curious but friendly glances. The main lodge was even more impressive on the inside than Luna had expected. Rich wood paneling covered the walls, adorned with beautiful paintings of forests and wolves. Traditional pack symbols were carved into support beams, but everything felt warm and lived in rather than intimidating. Elena led her up a curved staircase to the second floor, down a hallway lined with family portraits and pack history displays. At the end of the hall, she knocked on a heavy oak door. "Come in," came Kieran's familiar deep voice. The private dining room was smaller and more intimate than Luna had imagined. A round wooden table sat near floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a stunning view of the mountains. Kieran stood with his back to them, looking out at his territory, still wearing simple dark clothes that somehow managed to make him look both casual and commanding. "Good morning, Luna," he said without turning around. "I trust you slept well?" "As well as could be expected," she replied honestly. "Your territory is beautiful. Very different from what I was told to expect." That earned her a slight chuckle as he turned to face her. In the morning light, she could see that his amber eyes held flecks of gold and green. There were faint lines around them that spoke of someone who smiled often, despite his serious reputation. "I imagine there were many things you were told to expect that aren't proving true," he said, gesturing to chairs at the table. "Please sit." "Are you hungry?" Elena had discreetly disappeared, leaving them alone. Luna took a seat, noticing that the table was set for two with simple but elegant dishes. Steam rose from covered platters and fresh fruit and pastries were artfully arranged on wooden boards. "I'm curious about something," Luna said as Kieran served her eggs and bacon with practiced ease. "Why aren't you having your pack members serve us? Shouldn't there be formalities and protocols?" Kieran paused, coffee pot in hand, and gave her a look that seemed to peer directly into her thoughts. "Do you think I need servants to prove my authority?" Heat rose in Luna's cheeks at the gentle challenge in his tone. "No, I suppose you don't." "Good answer." He poured coffee for both of them before taking his own seat. "I find that true strength doesn't require constant displays of power. My pack follows me because they choose to, not because they fear the consequences of refusal." They ate in companionable silence for several minutes, but Luna could feel the weight of unspoken questions hanging between them. Finally, she couldn't contain her curiosity any longer. "Why did you agree to the trade?" she asked bluntly. "What do you gain from taking me?" Kieran set down his fork and studied her with those penetrating amber eyes. "What do you think I gain?" Luna had spent half the night wondering about this very question. "Political alliance with my former pack. A hostage to ensure their compliance. A mate to produce heirs." The last possibility made her stomach clench uncomfortably. "All logical assumptions," Kieran said neutrally. "Are any of them appealing to you?" The directness of his question caught her off guard. "Does it matter what appeals to me? I'm here whether I want to be or not." "It matters to me." His voice was quiet but firm. "You're not a prisoner, Luna, despite how this arrangement came about. You're free to leave if you choose, though I hope you'll give us a chance first." She stared at him in disbelief. "You're saying I can just walk away?" "I'm saying you have choices. More than you realize." Kieran leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "Tell me, what do you know about true mates?" The question seemed to come from nowhere, and Luna felt her heart skip a beat. True mates were rare, the stuff of legends and old pack stories. Two wolves whose souls were perfectly matched, who completed each other in ways that went beyond simple attraction or compatibility. "They're mostly myths," she said carefully. "Stories told to young wolves to make them believe in fairy tale endings." "Mostly myths," Kieran agreed. "But not entirely. True mates do exist, though they're incredibly rare. When they find each other, the bond is unmistakable, undeniable." Luna's mouth went dry as she began to understand where this conversation might be leading. "Why are you telling me this?" Instead of answering directly, Kieran stood and moved to the window. "Did you feel anything when you first saw me yesterday? Anything unusual?" She had felt something, but admitting it seemed dangerous. "I don't know what you mean. Your wolf stirred, didn't it? More than it should have for meeting a stranger." He turned back to face her, his expression intense but not threatening. "Mine did the same. More than stirred, actually. My wolf recognized you the moment you walked into that room." Luna's heart was pounding now, and she found it hard to breathe normally. "That's impossible. We've never met before, haven't we?" Kieran moved closer and she caught his scent more clearly. Pine and leather and something uniquely him that made her wolf pant with interest. "Sometimes souls recognize each other before minds do." She stood abruptly, needing distance to think clearly. "This is crazy. You're saying we're true mates, that this whole trade agreement was some elaborate scheme to bring us together?" "I'm saying that when I heard about the proposed trade agreement, I didn't hesitate to accept. Something told me it was important, that you were important." His voice was gentle but certain. "I've been alpha of this pack for 8 years, Luna. I've met hundreds of wolves, made alliances with dozens of other alphas. I've never felt anything like what I felt when I saw you." Luna's legs felt weak and she sank back into her chair. This was too much to process. Yesterday she had been resigned to a political marriage or life as a hostage. Now Kieran was suggesting they might be destined for each other. "I need time," she said finally. "This is all happening too fast." "Of course." Kieran returned to his seat, though she could sense the coiled energy in his movements. "Take all the time you need. Explore the territory, get to know the pack. There's no pressure, no expectations beyond giving this a chance." He paused, then added more quietly, "But I want you to know that regardless of what develops between us personally, you have a place here. This pack protects its own, and that includes you now." Luna looked into his amber eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. This powerful alpha, who could have any wolf he wanted, was offering her something she had never expected. Choice. Real choice with no coercion or manipulation. "What if you're wrong?" she asked. "What if we're not true mates? What if I decide I want to leave? Then you leave with my blessing and enough resources to start a new life wherever you choose," Kieran said simply. "But I don't think I'm wrong, Luna. My wolf has never been more certain of anything." As if summoned by his words, Luna felt her own wolf stirring restlessly beneath her skin. The beast that had been agitated and confused since the trade announcement was suddenly calm, almost purring with contentment in Kieran's presence. Maybe he wasn't wrong. Maybe this was fate intervening in her life in the most unexpected way possible. But admitting that scared her more than anything else that had happened in the past 24 hours. Over the next week, Luna threw herself into exploring every corner of the Shadowfang territory, partly out of genuine curiosity, and partly to avoid spending too much time thinking about her conversation with Kieran. The Alpha had given her space as promised, though she often caught glimpses of him going about his duties as pack leader. Elena had assigned Mira to be her guide, and the cheerful redhead proved to be an enthusiastic tour guide and font of information about pack life. Through Mira, Luna learned that Shadowfang operated more like a small town than a traditional wolf pack, with committees handling different aspects of daily life and decisions made through consensus rather than autocratic decree. Kieran could override anything if he wanted, Mira explained as they watched a group of children practicing shift control in a meadow near the school. But he trusts us to handle our own responsibilities. He says a pack that can't function without constant alpha intervention isn't really a pack at all. Luna watched the children with fascination. Unlike her own pack, where shifting was taught as a serious, almost military discipline, these young wolves were learning through games and play. Their instructor, a woman named Carmen, made the process look like the most natural thing in the world. "Would you like to help?" Carmen called out, having noticed their observation. "We're working on partial shifts today. Your experience with a different pack's techniques might be valuable." Before Luna could protest, Mira was pulling her toward the group. The children, ranging in age from 6 to 12, looked up at her with curious eyes. She had always been good with young wolves, and despite her nervousness about her new situation, she found herself relaxing as she worked with them. "In my pack, we learned control through meditation first," she told a little girl who was struggling to shift just her hands. "Try closing your eyes and imagining your wolf sleeping peacefully inside you. Then gently ask her to lend you just her claws." The technique worked, and soon other children were clustering around Luna, eager to try her methods. She lost track of time, caught up in their enthusiasm and progress. "You're a natural teacher," came a familiar deep voice from behind her. Luna turned to find Kieran watching from the edge of the meadow, his expression warm with approval. He had changed from his usual dark clothes into worn jeans and a flannel shirt that made him look younger and more approachable. "The children seem to like you," he continued, moving closer. "Carmen mentioned you've been helping here for the past 3 days." Luna glanced around and realized that several pack members had gathered to watch the lesson. Word had obviously spread that she was working with the children, and people had come to see for themselves. "I enjoy it," she said honestly. "These kids are amazing. So confident and happy." "They haven't learned to be afraid yet," Kieran said quietly. "In packs where alpha authority is absolute, children learn early to be cautious to avoid standing out. Here we encourage them to be themselves." As if to illustrate his point, a bold 8-year-old named Jake ran up to Kieran and launched himself into the alpha's arms without ceremony. Kieran caught him easily, grinning at the boy's enthusiasm. "Alpha Kieran. Did you see? Luna taught me how to shift just my ears. Want me to show you?" "Of course I want to see," Kieran said solemnly, setting the boy down. "That sounds like advanced technique." Luna watched in amazement as the most powerful alpha she'd ever met crouched down to the child's level, giving Jake his complete attention as the boy demonstrated his new skill. When Jake successfully managed a partial shift, Kieran's praise was genuine and enthusiastic. "Remarkable. You'll be ready for advanced classes soon," he told the beaming child. Other children began clamoring for Kieran's attention, and Luna observed how naturally he interacted with them. There was no condescension, no impatience, just genuine interest in their lives and accomplishments. It was a side of him she hadn't expected, and it made her chest tight with an emotion she couldn't quite name. "He's good with them," Carmen said, coming to stand beside Luna as they watched Kieran being mobbed by enthusiastic young wolves. "Kids can sense authenticity better than adults sometimes. They know he really cares about them." As the lesson ended and the children reluctantly returned to their other activities, Kieran approached Luna with a thoughtful expression. "Walk with me?" he asked, gesturing toward a path that led into the forest. Luna nodded, curiosity overcoming her wariness. They walked in comfortable silence for several minutes, following a well-maintained trail that wound between towering pines and aspens. The air was crisp and clean, carrying the scent of approaching autumn. "You've been avoiding me," Kieran said finally, his tone casual but observant. "I've been exploring," Luna corrected, though they both knew it was a deflection. "And what have you discovered in your explorations?" Luna considered how to answer. The truth was that everything she'd learned about Shadowfang had challenged her preconceptions. This wasn't a pack ruled by fear and intimidation. It was a community built on trust, respect, and shared purpose. "Your pack isn't what I expected," she said carefully. "The stories about Shadowfang paint a very different picture." "What stories specifically?" Kieran asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "That you rule through terror. That pack members disappear if they displease you. That you're building an army to conquer neighboring territories." Luna glanced at him sideways. "None of that seems to be true." "It's not," Kieran confirmed. "Though I've done nothing to discourage those rumors. Fear keeps enemies at a distance, and it's easier to appear dangerous than to constantly prove your strength." They emerged into a clearing where a small stream babbled over smooth stones. Ancient oaks formed a natural cathedral around the space, and Luna could feel the power of the place in her bones. This was sacred ground, a heart of the territory. "This is where I come to think," Kieran said, settling onto a fallen log beside the stream, "when the weight of leadership becomes too much or when I need clarity about difficult decisions." Luna remained standing, suddenly nervous about the intimacy of being alone with him in such a meaningful place. Her wolf was stirring again, responding to his proximity and the peaceful energy of the clearing. "Is that why we're here?" "Do you have a difficult decision to make?" she asked. "Yes and no." Kieran picked up a smooth stone and skipped it across a deeper pool in the stream. "The decision I need to make involves you, but it's not mine alone to make." Luna's heart began beating faster. "What kind of decision? Whether to tell you the complete truth about why I agreed to the trade, or to continue letting you discover it naturally?" He looked up at her with those penetrating amber eyes. "I'm torn between honesty and patience." "I prefer honesty," Luna said firmly, though part of her was terrified of what she might learn. Kieran nodded as if he had expected that answer. 3 months ago I had a dream. In it, I saw a woman with auburn hair and green eyes who would change everything for my pack. She was strong and kind, with a laugh that could heal old wounds and a spirit that couldn't be broken. In the dream, she was standing in that meadow where you were teaching the children, surrounded by the next generation of Shadowfang wolves. Luna sank onto the log beside him, her legs suddenly weak. "You're saying you dreamed about me before we ever met?" "I've had prophetic dreams before," Kieran said quietly. "It's part of my alpha abilities, though not something I advertise. They're usually about threats to the pack or major changes coming. This dream was different. It felt like a promise rather than a warning. So when my father proposed the trade," Luna began, "pieces clicking into place, I said yes immediately, even though my advisors thought I was making a mistake. They couldn't understand why I would want to take responsibility for a wolf from a rival pack." Kieran turned to face her fully. "But I knew you were important. I just didn't realize until I saw you that you were the woman from my dream." Luna stared at him, overwhelmed by the implications of what he was telling her. "You think I'm your destiny?" "I think we have the potential to be something extraordinary together," Kieran said carefully. "But only if it's what we both want. Destiny means nothing without choice." A breeze rustled through the clearing, carrying with it the scent of pine and possibilities. Luna felt her wolf responding to both the alpha beside her and the sacred energy of this place. Everything in her urged her to trust him, to take the leap of faith he was offering, but fear held her back. What if she was wrong? What if this was all just wishful thinking on both their parts? What if she opened her heart only to have it broken? "I need more time," she whispered, though every instinct screamed at her to reach out and touch him. "Of course," Kieran said, though she could see the disappointment he tried to hide. "Take all the time you need." "But Luna?" He caught her hand gently in his, sending electricity shooting up her arm. "Don't let fear make the decision for you. Trust your wolf. She knows the truth even when your mind is confused." As they walked back to the territory in thoughtful silence, Luna couldn't deny that her wolf was practically singing with contentment. The question was whether she was brave enough to listen. The crisis came without warning on a Tuesday morning, shattering the peaceful routine Luna had established over her 2 weeks at Shadowfang. She was helping in the pack's medical clinic, learning herbal healing techniques from Elena, when runners burst through the doors with news that sent ice through her veins. "Rogue attack on the eastern border," gasped Maya, one of the scout patrol leaders. "They've taken 3 of our people, including Tommy Morrison." Luna's blood ran cold. Tommy was barely 16, one of the children she had been teaching shift control. Elena immediately began gathering medical supplies while Maya continued her report to the rapidly assembling crisis team. "How many rogues?" asked David, Kieran's beta, as he coordinated the emergency response. "At least a dozen, maybe more. They hit fast and disappeared into the neutral zone before our patrol could respond properly." The neutral zone was a stretch of unclaimed territory between Shadowfang and the mountains, where rogue wolves often gathered. It was dangerous terrain, full of hidden caves and treacherous passages that made tracking difficult. Kieran arrived within minutes, his face grim but controlled. Luna watched him transform from the gentle man she had been getting to know into the formidable alpha his reputation suggested. Orders flew as he organized search teams and defensive measures to protect the territory. "They'll expect us to come straight at them," Kieran said, studying a detailed map of the neutral zone spread across the clinic table, which means they're probably holed up in the canyon system here. He pointed to a cluster of markings. It's defensible, but also a trap if they're waiting for us. What's the alternative? David asked. We go around, come at them from the north. It'll take longer, but we'll have the element of surprise. Luna studied the map, her mind racing. Something about the attack pattern bothered her, but she couldn't put her finger on what. Then she remembered conversations with her father about rogue behavior patterns, and suddenly everything clicked into place. It's a diversion, she said suddenly, causing everyone to turn and look at her. Kieran raised an eyebrow. Explain. The attack was too obvious, too sloppy for an organized rogue pack. They wanted to be seen taking hostages. They want you to chase them. Luna pointed to the map, her confidence growing as the pattern became clearer. My father dealt with a similar situation 5 years ago. Rogues took hostages to draw the main force away from the territory, then attacked the real target while defenses were weakened. What would their real target be here? Elena asked, though her expression suggested she was beginning to understand. Luna looked directly at Kieran, seeing the same realization dawning in his amber eyes. Me. They want you to leave the territory so they can come back and take me. I'm valuable as the female who sealed the alliance between Shadowfang and Crescent Moon. Capturing me would destabilize both packs. The room fell silent as everyone processed this possibility. If Luna was right, then charging off to rescue the hostages would be playing directly into the rogues' hands. Even if you're correct, David said slowly, we can't just abandon Tommy and the others. We don't abandon anyone, Kieran said firmly, his alpha authority filling the room. But we also don't walk into a trap. If they want me to split my forces, then that's exactly what we'll do, but on our terms. He turned to Luna with an expression that mixed admiration with concern. You're staying here well guarded while we handle this. No, I'm not. Luna's response surprised everyone, including herself. If I'm right about this being about me, then I'm the best bait you have. Let them come for me, but make sure they walk into a trap instead of springing one. Absolutely not, Kieran said immediately, his voice carrying the unmistakable tone of alpha command. I won't use you as bait. Luna felt her own wolf rise to meet his dominance, refusing to be cowed. You're not using me as anything. I'm volunteering. Those people were taken because of me. Tommy is just a child and he's in danger because I exist. I won't hide while others pay the price for my presence here. The tension in the room was palpable as Alpha and potential mate stared each other down. Finally, Elena cleared her throat diplomatically. What exactly are you proposing, Luna? She asked. Luna moved to the map, her plan crystallizing as she spoke. Send a small team to the canyon to make it look like you're taking the bait. Meanwhile, I stay in the territory but make myself visible and seemingly vulnerable. When the rogues come for me, you'll be ready for them. It's too dangerous, Kieran said flatly. It's the best chance those hostages have, Luna countered, and the best chance to end this threat permanently. If we just rescue the hostages without dealing with the rogue pack, they'll just try again later. David looked between them, clearly torn. She's not wrong about the tactical advantages, he said reluctantly. But the risk can be minimized with proper planning, Luna finished. I'm not helpless, Kieran. I may be new here, but I'm not weak. For a long moment, Kieran said nothing, his internal struggle visible on his face. Finally, he spoke, his voice heavy with resignation. If we do this, you follow my orders exactly. No heroics, no deviations from the plan. Agreed? Luna nodded, relief flooding through her. Agreed. The next hour was a whirlwind of preparation. The rescue team, led by David and 2 experienced trackers, would head for the canyon to maintain the illusion that Shadowfang was taking the bait. Meanwhile, Kieran positioned hidden guards throughout the territory, focusing on areas where rogues might approach. Luna was stationed in the meadow where she taught the children, seemingly alone but actually surrounded by concealed pack members. Kieran himself was hidden in the tree line, close enough to intervene instantly if things went wrong. As the afternoon wore on, Luna's nerves stretched taut. Every sound from the forest could signal the approach of enemies. She tried to appear relaxed, going through the motions of gathering herbs for Elena's medical supplies, but her wolf was on high alert. The attack came just before sunset, exactly as she had predicted. 6 rogues emerged from different points around the meadow, moving with the coordinated precision that confirmed this was a planned operation. They had intended to surround her before she could escape or call for help. What they hadn't planned for was the crossfire they walked into. Shadowfang wolves emerged from concealment all around the meadow, trapping the rogues in their own encirclement. The leader, a scarred male with cold yellow eyes, snarled in fury as he realized they had been outmaneuvered. "Stand down," Kieran commanded, stepping into the open with the full force of his alpha presence radiating outward. "You're outnumbered and surrounded. Surrender and you'll be treated fairly." The rogue leader's response was a vicious lunge toward Luna, claws extended and fangs bared. But Luna was ready for him. Months of training under her father's demanding regimen had prepared her for exactly this kind of attack. She sidestepped smoothly and delivered a powerful strike to his solar plexus that dropped him to his knees, gasping for breath. The brief fight that followed was more cleanup than battle. The remaining rogues, seeing their leader down and their situation hopeless, surrendered without further violence. Within minutes, they were all secured and being questioned about the location of their camp and the hostages. The canyon camp was a decoy, the leader admitted grudgingly, under Kieran's intense interrogation. "The real camp is in the old mine shafts 3 miles north. But if your people don't return by sunset, the hostages die." Kieran immediately sent word to David's team, redirecting them to the mine location. By the time full darkness fell, all 3 hostages had been rescued unharmed, and the entire rogue operation had been dismantled. As the territory settled back to normalcy, Kieran found Luna sitting by the stream in the sacred clearing, staring up at the stars. The adrenaline had finally worn off, leaving her emotionally drained but oddly peaceful. "You were incredible today," he said, settling beside her on the familiar log. "That tactical analysis, the trap, the way you handled that rogue leader. I've never seen anything like it." Luna leaned back, surprised by the pride in his voice. "I was terrified the whole time. I just tried to think about what my father would do." "Your father trained you well," Kieran said softly. "But what you did today wasn't just training. It was instinct, courage, and genuine care for people you've only known for 2 weeks. You risked your life for Tommy and the others." "They're pack," Luna said simply. "Or at least they feel like pack. I couldn't abandon them." Kieran was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "Do you still need more time to decide about us?" Luna turned to look at him, seeing vulnerability beneath the alpha strength. Today had crystallized something inside her, swept away the fears and doubts that had been holding her back. When she thought she might lose him, might lose this chance at something extraordinary, everything had become crystal clear. "No," she said softly. "I don't need more time. My wolf has been trying to tell me the truth since the day we met. We belong together, Kieran. I can feel it in my bones." The kiss that followed was everything she had dreamed it might be and more. Gentle but passionate, tender but claiming, it sealed a bond that felt as natural as breathing and as powerful as the full moon overhead. The morning after their first kiss brought a new energy to the Shadowfang territory that seemed to affect everyone. Luna woke in her own bed, though she had spent most of the night talking with Kieran under the stars, sharing stories of their childhoods and dreams for the future. The bond between them felt stronger with each passing hour, like a golden thread weaving their souls together. But with that growing connection came new challenges. As word spread that their Alpha and Luna were truly mated, the dynamics of pack life began shifting in subtle ways. Some pack members were thrilled, seeing it as confirmation that she truly belonged with them. Others seemed more reserved, perhaps wondering how an outsider would influence their beloved leader. Luna was acutely aware of these undercurrents as she made her way to the pack's central meeting hall for her first official gathering as Kieran's mate. Elena had helped her choose appropriate clothing, a deep blue dress that was formal but not ostentatious, paired with a simple silver pendant that had belonged to Kieran's mother. "Nervous?" Elena asked as they approached the hall together. "Terrified," Luna admitted honestly. "What if they don't accept me? What if they think I'm not good enough for him?" Elena stopped walking and turned to face her with the wisdom of someone who had watched pack dynamics for decades. "Luna, yesterday you helped save 3 pack members and dismantled a rogue threat through your quick thinking and courage. You've spent weeks here showing genuine care for our children, our elders, and our way of life. If anyone still questions whether you belong here, they haven't been paying attention." The meeting hall was packed when they entered, with pack members filling every available seat and standing space. Luna felt the weight of dozens of eyes following her movement as Elena led her to the front of the room where Kieran waited. He looked magnificent in formal dark clothing, every inch the powerful alpha. But when his gaze met hers, she saw only warmth and reassurance. "Pack family," Kieran began, his voice carrying easily through the large space. "We gather tonight to formally acknowledge what many of you have already sensed. Luna, who came to us as part of an alliance agreement, has become far more than a political arrangement. She is my true mate, and with your blessing will become your Luna." A murmur ran through the crowd, but Luna couldn't tell if it was positive or negative. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she waited for their response. Thomas, the elderly master craftsman who made the pack's furniture, was the first to stand. "Alpha," he said in his gravelly voice, "I've lived through 4 Alpha transitions in my 70 years. I've seen leaders who demanded respect and leaders who earned it. You've always been the latter." He turned to look directly at Luna. "This past month I've watched this young woman. I've seen her patience with our children, her respect for our elders, and her willingness to put others before herself. Yesterday she proved she'll fight to protect what's ours. If she's good enough for our Alpha, she's good enough for me." Thomas's endorsement seemed to break a dam. One by one, pack members began standing and voicing their support. Carmen spoke about Luna's natural teaching abilities with the children. Marcus, the head of security, praised her tactical thinking during the rogue crisis. Even shy little Mira stood to say how Luna had made her feel welcomed and valued. But it was young Tommy Morrison, still sporting bandages from his ordeal with the rogues, who brought tears to Luna's eyes. "She saved my life," he said in his clear adolescent voice. "Not just yesterday when she figured out the rogue plan, but before that too. I was struggling with my shifting, getting frustrated and angry. Luna taught me it was okay to be patient with myself. That strength comes in many forms. She made me believe I could be brave. When those rogues grabbed me, I remembered what she said about inner strength, and it helped me stay calm until you found us." By the time the formal acknowledgments ended, Luna was overwhelmed by the outpouring of acceptance and support. When Kieran asked if there were any objections to her becoming their Luna, the silence was profound and complete. "Then it's settled," Kieran announced, reaching for Luna's hand. "Luna Blackwood, Luna of the Shadowfang Pack." The celebration that followed was unlike anything Luna had ever experienced. Tables groaned under the weight of food prepared by dozens of pack members. Musicians emerged with guitars and fiddles, filling the air with traditional pack songs and modern melodies. Children ran between the adults, their laughter mixing with animated conversation and the warm sounds of a community celebrating. Luna found herself pulled from group to group, each pack member wanting to personally welcome her and share stories or advice. The overwhelming acceptance was healing something inside her that she hadn't even realized was broken. "You look happy," Kieran observed during a brief lull in the festivities. He had somehow procured 2 glasses of wine and was leaning against a quiet corner where they could watch the celebration. "I am happy," Luna replied, meaning it completely. "I never expected this, any of it. 3 weeks ago I was resigned to being a political pawn, and now—" She gestured at the room full of people who were becoming her family. "Now you're exactly where you belong," Kieran finished softly. "I know this all happened fast, but does it feel right to you?" "Really right?" Luna set down her wine and took his hands in hers, marveling at how perfectly they fit together. "It feels like coming home to a place I never knew I was searching for. Like every choice I've made in my life led me here, to you, to them." She nodded toward the celebrating pack. "I love you, Kieran. Not because of some mystical mate bond or prophetic dreams, but because of who you are, the way you lead with wisdom instead of fear, the way you care for every member of this pack, the way you gave me choice when you could have simply claimed what you wanted." "I love you too," he said, his amber eyes soft with emotion. "More than I thought possible. You've brought something to this pack that we didn't even know we were missing." Their quiet moment was interrupted by Elena, who approached with a small velvet box in her hands. "I'm sorry to intrude," she said with a knowing smile, "but I have something that belongs to you now. Luna." Inside the box was a stunning silver ring set with a stone that seemed to shift between amber and emerald depending on the light. Luna recognized it immediately from portraits she had seen around the pack house. "Kieran's mother's ring," Elena explained. "Sarah Blackwood wore it for 30 years as Luna of this pack. Before she died, she made me promise to give it only to a woman who truly understood what it meant, to put pack before self." Luna's hand shook as Kieran slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. She would have loved you, Elena said softly, tears glistening in her eyes. She would have seen what we all see, that you were meant to be here. As the evening wound down and pack members began drifting back to their homes, Luna stood on the lodge's front porch with Kieran, watching the territory settle into peaceful quiet. The ring on her finger caught the moonlight, a tangible symbol of her new life and responsibilities. "What happens now?" she asked, leaning against his solid warmth. "Now we plan our mating ceremony," Kieran said, wrapping his arms around her. "Though Elena tells me that's going to require quite a bit of organization. Apparently, we need to invite your former pack, all our allies, and about half the supernatural community in the region." Luna laughed at the thought of the elaborate celebration Elena was undoubtedly already planning. "And after that? After that, we build a life together. We lead this pack, protect our territory, and maybe start a family of our own someday." He paused, his voice becoming more serious. "There will be challenges, Luna. Other alphas who will test us, political situations that require difficult choices, the normal struggles of pack life. Are you ready for all of that?" Luna turned in his arms to face him fully, seeing her future reflected in his eyes. A future full of purpose, belonging, and love deeper than she had ever imagined possible. "I'm ready for anything," she said firmly, "as long as we face it together." The moon overhead blessed them with its silver light as they sealed their commitment with a kiss that tasted of promises and forever. Tomorrow would bring new responsibilities and challenges, but tonight Luna Blackwood was exactly where she belonged, home in the arms of her true mate, surrounded by the pack that had chosen to love her. 6 months after the mating ceremony that had brought together 5 different packs in celebration, Luna stood in the same meadow where she had first taught the Shadowfang children. But everything had changed. The spring morning was crisp with promise, and she could feel new life stirring everywhere around her, in the earth beneath her feet, in the buds on the trees, and deep within her own body. The mating ceremony had been everything Elena had promised and more. Luna's father had attended, his pride evident despite his attempts to maintain alpha dignity. Watching Marcus embrace Kieran as a son had been one of the most healing moments of Luna's life. Former enemies becoming family through the bonds of love and respect. Now, as Luna placed a protective hand over her still flat stomach, she marveled at how much her world had expanded. The territory felt truly like home, every path and building as familiar as her own heartbeat. The pack members who had once been strangers were now beloved family, their joys and sorrows as important to her as her own. Lost in thought, Kieran's voice came from behind her, warm with the affection that never seemed to fade between them. Luna turned to find her mate approaching with 2 steaming cups of coffee and the morning's territorial reports. Even 6 months later, the sight of him still made her pulse quicken. The bond between them had only grown stronger with time, deepening into something that transcended the purely physical attraction they had felt initially. "Just thinking about how much has changed," she replied, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Do you remember what this meadow looked like when I first arrived?" Kieran settled beside her on the wooden bench he had installed a few weeks after their mating ceremony, claiming Luna needed a proper place to think. "I remember a scared young woman trying very hard to appear brave, teaching children techniques she learned in a completely different world. And now?" Luna gestured toward the meadow where a mixed group of children from 3 different packs were practicing combat forms together. The alliance between Shadowfang, Crescent Moon, and 2 neighboring packs had created opportunities for shared training and cultural exchange that benefited everyone. Now I see the Luna of Shadowfang, confident in her own strength and wisdom, teaching the next generation how to build bridges instead of walls, Kieran said softly. "I see my mate, my partner, my equal in all things that matter." Luna felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. The role of Luna had come naturally to her in many ways, but there had been challenges too. Learning to balance the needs of different pack members, mediating disputes, and supporting Kieran's leadership decisions had required skills she was still developing. "Speaking of challenges," she said, noting the slight tension in his shoulders as he reviewed the morning reports. "What's troubling you today?" Kieran sighed and handed her one of the documents. "Marcus Thornfield from the Riverside Pack is requesting a meeting. He says it's urgent and involves threats to the regional balance of power." Luna frowned as she scanned the formal request. Marcus Thornfield was known for his diplomatic approach to pack relations, so if he was calling for urgent meetings, the situation was likely serious. "When does he want to meet?" she asked. "Tomorrow afternoon?" "He's bringing his beta and lead strategist, which suggests this isn't a simple courtesy call." Kieran set aside the reports and turned to face her fully. "Luna, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me." The serious tone caught her attention immediately. "What is it? Are you ready for what might be our first real test as leaders? Not just as mates, but as the alpha pair of a major pack." Kieran's amber eyes searched her face carefully. "Because whatever Thornfield wants to discuss, it's going to require us to make decisions that could affect not just Shadowfang, but all our allies." Luna considered the question seriously. 6 months ago, she would have been terrified by the prospect of such responsibility, but the woman she had become through love, acceptance, and gradual growth felt different about challenges than the scared girl who had been traded away from her birth pack. "I'm ready," she said firmly, "not because I think it will be easy, but because I know we'll face whatever comes together. And because this pack, this family we've built, is worth protecting." Kieran's expression shifted to something like relief mixed with pride. "I hoped you would say that. Because there's something else I need to tell you. Something I've been waiting for the right moment to share." Luna's pulse quickened at the mysterious tone. "What kind of something?" Instead of answering immediately, Kieran stood and offered her his hand. "Come with me. There's a place I want to show you." They walked deeper into the forest than Luna had explored before, following paths that seemed ancient and wild. The trees grew larger here, their canopies so thick that the forest floor remained in perpetual twilight. After nearly an hour of hiking, they emerged into a hidden valley that took Luna's breath away. A crystal-clear lake reflected the sky like a perfect mirror, surrounded by wildflowers and protected by towering cliffs on 3 sides. But it wasn't the natural beauty that made Luna gasp. It was the structure at the far end of the valley. "Is that a castle?" she whispered, staring at the stone building that seemed to grow from the cliff face itself. "The ancestral home of the Blackwood family," Kieran confirmed. "It's been empty for 40 years since my grandfather decided that leading from the territory was more effective than ruling from isolation. But it's still ours, still protected by the strongest ward magic our family ever created." As they walked closer, Luna could see that despite decades of abandonment, the castle remained in perfect condition. Ivy covered some walls, but the stone was solid and the windows intact. "Why are you showing me this now?" she asked, though part of her already suspected the answer. "Because whatever challenges are coming, we might need a place that's completely secure, defensible from any threat. And because—" Kieran stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression vulnerable in a way she rarely saw. "Because I think it's time we started planning for the future, for a family of our own." Luna's hand moved instinctively to her stomach where their first child was already growing. She hadn't told him yet, wanting to be completely certain before sharing the news. But his timing was perfect in the way that fate often was for true mates. "About that," she said softly, taking his hands in hers, "I have some news that might make those plans feel more urgent." Understanding dawned in Kieran's eyes, followed by joy so pure and bright that it took her breath away. "Really, are you sure?" "I'm sure." Luna laughed at his expression, which cycled between excitement, protectiveness, and something like terror in rapid succession. "Elena confirmed it yesterday. We're going to have a baby, Kieran." The kiss that followed was tender and reverent, full of love and promise for the future they would build together. When they finally broke apart, Luna could see tears of happiness in her mate's eyes. "How long have you known?" he asked, his hands moving to rest gently on her stomach. "Only a few days. I wanted to be certain before I told you." Luna covered his hands with her own. "Are you happy?" "Happy doesn't begin to cover it," Kieran said, his voice rough with emotion. "Terrified, overwhelmed, grateful. Protective, I'm feeling everything at once." They spent the rest of the day exploring the castle and planning how it might serve as both a retreat and a fortress if needed. As evening approached and they made their way back to the main territory, Luna felt a deep sense of completion. The scared young woman who had been traded away from her birth pack was truly gone, replaced by someone strong enough to face whatever challenges lay ahead. "Tomorrow we'll deal with Thornfield and whatever crisis he's bringing," Luna said as they reached the edge of the territory, where pack lights twinkled welcomingly in the growing darkness. Tonight we celebrate the family we're creating and the future we're building. Kieran stopped walking and pulled her into his arms one more time. I love you, Luna Blackwood, more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. I love you too, she replied, meaning it with every fiber of her being. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together, all three of us. As they walked home hand in hand under the rising moon, Luna reflected on the journey that had brought her here. What had begun as a political trade had become the greatest love story of her life. What had started as exile had become the most profound homecoming she could imagine. The future stretched ahead full of unknowns, challenges to face, children to raise, a pack to lead, and a love to nurture through whatever storms might come. But Luna had never been more ready for anything in her life. She had found her true mate, her real home, and her authentic self all in one extraordinary package. The bold alpha who had claimed her heart had given her everything she had never dared to dream of wanting. In return, she would give him her strength, her wisdom, her love, and her unwavering partnership in building something beautiful and lasting together. Under the watchful stars, Luna Blackwood walked toward her future with confidence, knowing that the best parts of her story were still to come.